What is up, Scrub fam? I am back with a deck profile for you guys. Highly requested, highly controversial, a deck that you're going to see running around, a deck that is kind of fun to play, but at the same time has the ability to lock down its win conditions relatively quickly, ability to develop a board state that's hard to interact with, and a deck that is ultimately something that you will see as long as the change to Mecha Frieza isn't made, which I think we're all suspecting is going to be once per turn or something to do with only making it yellow extra cards, but I definitely see once per turn being the optimal way to change the card. But before we get into that, special shout out to Bearded Collectibles, my sponsor, of course. Team Bearded, amazing shop owner Alec Pastrana. If you haven't picked up your product yet, Bearded still has the best prices on cases, as well as any other sealed product like your special packs and your decks that your starter decks that you're gonna need to get, so you have all the cards that you need. But anyway, so let me go ahead and jump straight into the deck profile. So of course, Mecha Frieza leader. We know that Mecha Frieza is great. Basically, throughout your turn, if you have any battle cards, you can just pay a life instead of paying 1 energy cost on the front side. On the back, it reduces it by 2, and that creates a really solid strategy, especially for a deck that's trying to accelerate and do unfair things as quickly as possible. So the main card in the deck that's going to be doing the most work for you is going to be your Planet Vegeta. So Planet Vegeta, when you place it into play, with Mecha Frieza, you're essentially just going to be taking a life from hand, doing it for free, and then tutoring any 4-drop or less Saiyan from your deck. So a lot of the times, it really just depends on what your opener looks like, but cards I most often see myself tutoring a lot of the time are either Shugesh, Explosive Spirit, Son Goku, or Lord of the Great Apes, King Vegeta, just based off of what I have in hand. And then the way that your games mostly play out is going to be turn 1 Planet and Objection. And then so on turn 3, or if you get awakened fast enough, you can Shigesh and then flash down a Lord of the Great Apes King Vegeta, and then on your turn evolve it into Absolute Defense King Vegeta. Which, the fact that this is only 3 cost for the evolve is insane. So getting him out way ahead of schedule is incredibly strong, especially when you're Shugeshing and then flashing down your 3-drop King Vegeta. The main play patterns in this deck that cause it to be incredibly powerful are relying on, of course, March of the Great Ape, which you can do as soon as turn 3 in this deck. And then a lot of the times the board state can get out of control, because once you March of the Great Apes, you're then putting down 2 Great Ape Prince Vegetas, which have blocker and critical, and then or you're putting down some combination of Bardoks and Vegetas, or just Bardoks, whatever. And then they all have blocker, they all have big effects, and they're all big bodies. So as soon as turn 3, you're playing 2 Great Apes from your hand, you're drawing 2 cards to replace them, and so you're down 1 card on the exchange because of the March of the Great Ape costed you a card to basically put these 2 bodies, and then you refill your hand with 2 cards. So that's where the board state starts to kind of get out of control, is that, and then once you lock in King Vegeta into Absolute Defense Great Ape King Vegeta, the game's it ends pretty quickly, because now your 2 4-drop attackers that you put into play because of March, as well as your King Vegeta, just untap every turn. And of course, King Vegeta gives all your guys barrier. So at this point, your opponent's removal can't touch any of your team. Your Bloodlust almost like a non-factor. So that's why you're relying on 3 copies in your main deck, because you just don't really need them that much. And then from there, we also had to make some other considerations, like I can only play 3 coercions, 3 beans. It was originally 4 beans, 2 coercions, but I really wanted the extra defense instead of the extra bean. So I really went down to the 3-3 split to kind of maximize on that. But at the same time, I'm still keeping 3, 6, 10. I'm still keeping 14 blue sources in the deck, because you need to be able to hit blue source plus objection along with your planets to be able to get the game plan going to get your optimal draw. So aside from the basics of the deck itself, there's a few interactions that you guys need to be aware of and know. And of course, the biggest one is just the way Shugesh plays into the deck. So Shugesh is just kind of a centerpiece of a lot of the Mecha Frieza strategies because of how fast you can get down to 4 life. But ultimately, you're only playing 2 cards with it. In the entire deck, you're playing Shugesh into an explosive to blow up the attacker, and essentially at that point, the attack is now over, so it's almost like extra negates, and it's a total blowout a lot of the time. So you don't really have to play much removal in the deck, because due to the type of removal that you play, being all of them are pretty much just instant speed kill spells with Explosive Spirit Son Goku, you don't really have to worry about too much. And then once you set up your board state of your big apes, this is really all you need to clean up the work. So predictions, this will probably be the most expensive SR because the card is just so good. It does everything you want. Like, legitimately, it is the LeBron James of battle cards in this game. It does everything. It's a blocker. It has barrier. It kills something when it comes into play and untaps at the end of the turn. So if you want to get in with it, you can. But so this card just does it all. And then, of course, you have your Lord of the Great Apes, King Vegeta, which you can flash down with Shigesh, which is, majority of the time, this is how we end up making the play, is you'll Shigesh into Great Apes, King Vegeta, and then he'll tutor your 5-drop King Vegeta for your next turn. So then you're fine. You're exactly where you want to be for the turn. You're exactly where you want to be for the game plan. It just adds additional consistency to your deck. So a lot of the times, the way your hands are set up, you can just Planet Vegeta on turn 1 and Objection, of course, on turn 1. Get your Great Apes King Vegeta. You'll be at 4 life at some point. You'll Shigesh down your King Vegeta, evolve. You'll have your marches, and you're good to go. So a lot of people are sometimes leaning into all in on March. I'm not a big fan of playing the 4th copy. The 4th copy ends up being something that you just charge, or it ends up being dead in hand. And this deck already plays 20 extra cards because you're playing Mecha Frieza Leader. So the concession was dropping March of the Great Apes for a little bit of added defense with the extra coercion, as well as I wanted to make space in the deck for a card I'll get to in a second, and then I'll explain my reasoning behind it. And then, of course, you're gonna max out on the best apes that you can play at 4 energy, which are Bardock, Will of Iron, and Great Ape Prince Vegeta. Both of these are promos, I mind you. These will probably be the most expensive promos. Bardock isn't something that's super impressive, but the reason why is because this card is just so generically good and fits into a generically great deck that you're gonna need to get it. And then Great Ape Prince Vegeta is just gas. He's 20, he's critical, he's blocker, he's everything you want in a card, everything you want in a threat. And then, of course, when you combine it with his dad, the Great Ape King Vegeta, all your guys now have they have all barriers, so they're all protected. So, like I said, a lot of my times in testing, once you set up the board state of 2 4-drop threats and a King Vegeta, the game just ends relatively quickly because your opponent's not going to be able to answer you. And then, of course, the last 2 cards in the deck, aside from stuff like Boo, which you guys already know this stuff, and this is kind of just like obvious stuff you'll play, 2 Foos. I can't get over how powerful this card is. The first time I was testing with Pat, and I knew the card was really good, but then having it played against me when he was playing his Zamasu deck, or Zamafu deck, I just knew that the card was going to be incredibly powerful, and having it played against me definitely proved that. So I wanted to jam copies into this deck, and this card's really easy to cast. I know that it says Overrealm 10, but a lot of the times I'll just intentionally start comboing to get my opponent's life total down, and then so I'll have 2 4-drop attackers, a King Vegeta, and then I'll play my Fu. Game's over. The opponent can't activate counters, their super combos do nothing. Like, the game just ends once Fu hits the board. So once Fu hits the board. So that's why I run 2 Fus in the main deck as well. If you want to talk about your sideboard plans, it really just depends on how Bandai chooses to address this problem with Mecha Frieza. Because if Mecha Frieza becomes the best deck in the format because of the fact that Mecha Frieza can take all the new strategies and do them faster, then you're going to see sideboards that are going to be heavily based around Battering Laser and things like that. So I think sideboarded, I'd run 2 Battering Lasers, the 4th Cold Bloodlust, some Crusher Balls. I'd probably run... Maybe I might think about running Dodorias in the sideboard if I think that the guaranteed draw 1 card ends up being better, or probably, because Shigesh is just, he's too good not to play, I'll probably just put in more targets for him, so I might side out the Foos for like Time Patrol Trunks, and then try and, build a little bit more consistency from there, because that's originally what I did, was I was running, essentially you could plan it for a Time Patrol because Time Patrol Trunks is still a Saiyan, and then you could play Time Patrol that turn, but really just the high ceiling of Fu made it way more worthwhile because you'll get to 6 energy relatively fast in this deck to just invest and then overextend sometimes on attacks because I know that dropping a Fu that turn will just win the game. So the deck, incredibly strong, incredibly easy to, it's not necessarily easy to play, but it's easy to put the board state together for you to be able to win the game. And one thing that's cool about the Apes version of this deck is Bloodlust is kind of really like a non-factor against you, because you're really just relying on your King Vegeta to come out, and then he has the permanent where all your guys get barriers. So even if they try and Bloodlust him, it doesn't matter. So your only real Bloodlust targets in the deck are Explosive Spirits on Goku and Fu, unless they want to Bloodlust your King Vegeta so you can't tutor, or if they want to, Cold Bloodlust your Bardock or your Great Ape Prince Vegeta just to not have them do anything for the turn. But a lot of the times that's just going to be in vain. So the reason why I prefer this deck over the red deck, I feel like this deck is more consistent at the game plan it likes. I think that this deck is something that can survive a metagame, especially day one, and just have a solid footing into the new format as we go forward. So this is a deck that I definitely enjoy playing right now. It's something that I do feel is borderline unfair, but at the same time, I think this is probably one of the more fairer versions of Mecha Frieza, especially going to this set. But the deck is highly consistent, so if you get time, go ahead and test it out. Special thanks to Shinron's Lair. They have a really good deck builder that you guys can use online, so I thought I'd try it out for this video. So if you guys like this format or like the display, let me know. Or if you prefer it on Octagon, let me know, and I'll just continue to go with whatever you guys decide. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this deck profile. I hope you guys learned a bit about Mecha Frieza Apes, and I hope you guys like this list. Go upload it into Octagon right away. Get some games in with it. You can just see the different interactions, the different play patterns. You can see how strong the deck is, and you can really just kind of feel the power level of this deck once you finally hit that, you start hitting those ideal board states, and you can just, there's a lot of the times where I hit it and then my opponent is just he'll just concede. Like, they just have to just concede because the game's just not going to last much longer. Because once you have your, say, like a lot of the times optimally, you'll march into two Great Ape Prince Vegetas, and then that's two, like, you're talking turn 3, two 20k crit attackers that your opponent, like, if you're on the play and it's your turn 3 and your opponent goes to their turn 3, there's no removal in the game that they can play at 3 energy. None. So if I'm on the play, turn 3, I march into two Great Ape Prince Vegetas, the game's going to be over relatively quickly, especially if I've had the ideal start and I'm already, the super ceiling, high ceiling start where I already am awakened. There's just nothing the opponent can do to beat that draw. So the thing about this deck is sometimes there's the nut draw, and then other times you get to just play a fair game, but your fair game's just better. And the major reason why is because though your removal is kind of niche, you're Shigeshing into Goku, it's the best kind of removal because it's your opponent's best threat. They're going to swing in with it because it's their best threat, and then if they invest any more cards into it, they get blown out. So anyway, this is the deck profile itself. I hope you enjoyed it. Please test out Fu. This is probably the black card that is going to be the least tested because people think that the investment's too high and they don't know how great the effect is. I really urge you to test with this card. This has the potential to be something that you just see in a bunch of decks because once it's played, it's just game ending because the opponent can't do anything, and basically gets you a free turn if they don't die that turn, and so you get another turn to build your board state. So this deck has been pretty gas lately. I haven't lost really any games with it aside to I lost to a Mass Saiyan aggro deck, I think one game when I was playing a set, but I ended up coming back and winning the next 2 games because I just had optimal draws. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. OBS is about to go to a split screen because I'm doing this. But anyway, thank you guys so much for everything you do. Please subscribe to 3XG Productions. I'd appreciate it very much so. You guys are incredible. I am going to be doing giveaways for some starter decks soon, hopefully this next week or so, because I'm getting my product in hopefully by Friday. But otherwise, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for everything you do for me. Thank you for the Dragon Ball Super community. You guys are amazing. And also check out, if you're a former Pansy, Fansy, Scoresy player, check out Super Pansies. It's a group that I started recently just to kind of bring everyone together that played those games because we share that in common, so we can talk about the good old days and, of course, talk about how we're going to get better at Super because there's a lot of really good players in this game. And we know us pansy fancy players, we know how to get good at games. So otherwise, thank you guys so much for all your support. Okay, bye.